Oh, there we are. We're just getting started. It's 7:11. So I will say a very warm welcome to everybody. Thank you very much for coming out to support both Power and Aging group coaching program and Melanie, our special guest speaker, who I'll introduce in just a moment. My name is Christine, for those that don't know me. I started this program, Power and Aging, just over a year ago now, actually. We've been doing guest speaker events since last May, I guess. So I think Melanie's probably our 14th guest speaker. We're very blessed to have some really wonderful guest speakers and experts on different topics every month that come and teach us their wealth of knowledge. And we're also a group coaching program. So the program is designed specifically for people entering midlife. Sorry, my messages, people are trying to come in. And so sort of like you realize you've just not really in your younger years now, you're just kind of coming into your stride into midlife, and we're facing some challenges that we didn't have to face when we were younger, and all the different transitions. And we realized that aging is the most natural and most beautiful process. And we are very much about, I should say, empowerment and embracing aging, as opposed to anti-aging and trying to not be yourself. We are very much a pro-aging group, and we try to encourage people to be the best that they can be at any age, whether it's with your health and wellness or your mental health, spiritual health. We talk about limiting beliefs and how they keep us held back. We talk about the process of grief and loss and letting things go and moving forward into a new chapter. So we've developed different programs. We're actually working on something new and exciting, which I'm not going to be like giving too many details away, but I will make the short announcement to say that we have one more guest speaker next month in June, and we're actually taking July and August off this summer. I know everyone's really busy anyway for our guest speakers. We'll still be continuing our monthly group coaching for our members, but we'll be taking that time off to get the new program up and ready for launching in the fall. So please stay tuned for that. And as I mentioned, we are a group coaching program. So usually on the Saturday following these presentations, we do our group coaching on Saturday mornings at 11:11 Eastern time. And it's a great opportunity to have a life coach or two, depending on how many of us are able to make that session, to help you through whatever you want to work on. So it's a way to take advantage of very reasonably priced coaching. We are $11.11 a month if you want to pay monthly, or $111 annually if you join our membership, and that includes your group coaching every month. So we do welcome and encourage you to come out for some group coaching. If you want to come this Saturday, let me know. I'm happy to share the link with you. You can come and try it if you want to see. And yeah, we're welcoming new members all the time. So please do sign up for our email if you aren't already. I think a lot of you are, but there's a lot of faces I actually don't know that Melanie's brought in as guests. So I encourage you to go to powerandaging.com, and you can sign up for our newsletter. You'll be able to get all of our follow-up emails, our links to these events. Unfortunately, if you haven't already signed up, you probably won't get the follow-up email from Melanie's for tonight. But if you want to type your email into the box, I'm happy to make sure I forward that to you, so you make sure you take advantage of Melanie's free gift that she's giving everybody. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our guest speaker for this evening. I can't say that I know Melanie too well. We were trying to count, like, I've only known her a couple months. I think it was like just shy of 500 months, like literally 41 years I've known Melanie. Yeah. So I thought it would sound less, and but it sounds just as bad in months. So 41 years, Melanie and I stumbled together in grade 5, and instantly had like this sort of, we were called Frick and Frack, and we just had this wonderful friendship for all of these years. Our lives have taken us in different locations, but we've found each other again. And Melanie's, well, I mean, you know her energy is absolutely amazing, but her skill and her expertise in this topic, honestly, I couldn't think of anybody better to invite to Power and Aging to talk about really like being healthy from the inside out, because that's what it's all about, right? We work on a lot of the life coaching stuff with the mental and the emotional health, but when you're talking about physical health, which is all related, Melanie is such an expert. I literally, if I have a question, she's the one I text, I call, like, should I be putting this in my mouth right now? No, probably not. She does make me feel a little guilty sometimes, but that's what friends do, right? Or I should say accountable. Melanie also, if you don't already know, opened up a restaurant called Plant Matter Kitchen here in London, Ontario. It's a vegan restaurant. She was the co-founder and creator of that restaurant. I can't remember how many years ago now, maybe 7-ish. She was there for a few years before moving on, and she and her family have been in the restaurant industry as well since I've known her. So she has a lot of expertise coming from the food industry as well as the health and wellness. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it on to Melanie. Thank you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. I think we said hi to most people. I guess we should jump right into the presentation. Does that make sense?
Yeah, because you're going to introduce yourself there, right?
Yeah, I'll introduce myself.
Oh, and I'm sorry, I forgot to mention, I'm just going to mute everybody as well. But Mel, it's going to mute you probably, maybe not. We'll
I'll
see.
unmute it.
Yeah, I
Or
think
can I?
okay, because you're a co-host. So.
Okay. So just so you know, if you have any urgent questions that are regarding any particular slide that I'm on, please feel free to type it in the chat box. Christine's going to be monitoring that. And if it's relevant for immediate discussion, then she'll let me know. And if it's not, then we'll go over everything at the end in a Q&A session, in a questions and answer session. Sound good? Okay, so I'm going to share my screen. And I hope everybody is able to see it. Look at the bouncy blue dot. It's such a pretty teal. I don't know how that happened, but I like it. So this is what we're going to do today. Just a brief outline. We'll do a quick about me, which Christine's covered part of the way anyway. We'll go into detoxing, cleansing, etc., and we'll break them all down a little bit. And then if you want to have questions, further questions, we can go over that in the Q&A after. And then we'll go over some goals and strategies and ways to go about some of those things. And of course, in the end, we can add any questions you'd have about how to get somewhere, some perhaps past stuff that you've tried that did or didn't work, or whatever you want to ask. We'll carry on with that. Okay. I just have to see how to change to the next slide. There we go. Can everybody see it okay? Because my pictures are kind of in the way, but I'm assuming you don't see those. My name is Melanie Wendt. Thank you very much. My mother named me, and I've always had a really strong interest in health and fitness and cooking. Obviously, I was thrown into it with being in restaurants most of my life. I love nature. I love travel. All those kind of things. Those are probably my top 5 things that I enjoy. So my journey in health, if I have to track it backwards, I'd say it began, and I only sort of came to this realization in the last 5 years or so. I'd say it began at the age of 10 or so, because I was quite a sick child. I had severe allergies. So grass, animals, pollen, like anything I would have issues with. And because I had severe asthma as well, they played on each other. So literally when I was young, I was in the hospital a lot. I was kind of that baby in a bubble, or actually child in a bubble, because I'm not sure if my mother never remembers anything. So I'm not sure if it's actually from when I was an infant, but it happened from when I was a child on. I remember I have visual memories of being inside those plastic tents on a gurney or on a hospital bed, so that they could stop allergens and stuff from coming into my environment, so that I could regulate my breathing. So I do have vivid memories of that. And it's sort of, so I was always carrying an inhaler. I went to like the asthma Olympics as a child. That was kind of my life. It was centered around that in a lot of ways. And that happened through to the time I was probably 12. It started getting better, sort of late teens, and I wasn't in the plastic bed past, you know, maybe 6 or so. But it probably had something to do with how I think about those sort of things. Now, when I was 10, I also became vegetarian, which threw my family for a loop, because, you know, 41 years ago, it was not normal and not usual for someone to want to eat as a vegetarian, even though there were scores of cultures that do it. It was not common in North America. So it worried my parents, definitely. And, but it was just something that I no longer wanted to participate in. So that was, I don't know. And when I think back to it, I always wonder, perhaps that was just too much stress for my body to handle. And taking meat out of my diet was helpful for me, because I started having less and less issues with needing my inhaler regularly. And it just sort of dissipated over time. And we never really even put anything together, but it just happened. Whether you can say it's from growing out of it, or from maybe also taking some toxic load out of my system that was too much for me. All these are possibilities. So that was an important part in my journey. So going to past lives, and I don't mean, Christine had said, you mean like ones that you'd lived before this one? And no, I just mean things that I've done previous to this moment. She spoke about restaurants. My dad's a chef. My stepdad's a chef. My dad is a helicopter pilot. But my stepdad is a chef. So we came into it, you know, through restaurants. Early, we always used to go to his hotels. Before we had restaurants, he ran a hotel kitchen. So I was into the food part of it very, very early. Fitness as well. I always was very interested in sports and fitness. Christine and I played baseball together, for example. And it sort of went on from there. And then I also became a fitness trainer and did that at the same time as doing other jobs. And I also was a travel guide with Anita, actually, with Anita's company. And so that was in Central America. So that took me to another place. And I just love incorporating everybody's knowledge from different parts of the world, because they all live differently. They all have their own wealth of knowledge that we don't necessarily know. So that was another inspiration for me, to be able to take bits and pieces from other cultures, from this piece and that piece, and put them together and see what works for everybody, because everybody is different, again, physically, mentally, all of those things, right? My relevant degrees, I have a biology degree. I have detoxing certificates. I'm going through endocrinology training for the past couple of years. I have a gut balancing specialty, as well as an insulin specialty, insulin and glucose levels. So these are all things that, it's a specialty. It's supposed to be a specialty, but you know, I didn't check the spelling, apparently. And anyway, with all those things, I love teaching people how to optimize their health and not be dependent on a system, but to look inward. And because you're the only person with yourself for 24 hours a day, right? So you know yourself better than anyone else. And I feel like people give it up to the allopathic community, to a doctor, perhaps too quickly, instead of looking at how they could possibly, see what's going on within their body and try to navigate that before giving over the reins to a doctor, et cetera, when it's not an emergency. Emergencies are great. Doctors are great for that. Okay, moving on. A nice little saying from Mahatma Gandhi, that living life simply so that others may simply live. I think that's very relevant. And you can use it in so many ways. I think that if we go back to the basics in a lot of ways, that helps us mentally, physically, emotionally, and of course, helping others and the community that we need. And I think community is very important for people, and that we've lost a lot of that, especially over the last 10, 15 years. I think that that is lacking. I think that's something we need to come back to. And I think that's in other cultures, and it's just in North America, we've lost it over the decades, you know? So that speaks volumes to me, and I hope it does to you. So Christine thought it would be interesting to talk about, you know, the difference between the word cleanse and the word detox. So cleansing is a much gentler, milder process. For example, every day, many, many times a day, your blood is being cleansed by your liver, because it has about a 10-liter capacity at a time of blood, and it filters about 1.4 liters per minute. So that's why your liver is so vitally important, and you have to be good to it, right? I think that our bodies, if we break down what each organ and each cell is doing at any moment in time, it's unbelievably complicated. The complex things that are happening over and over, and all of the things that need to be present in order for it to work optimally. It's astounding. If you try to break it down, it makes your head spin, really. But at the same time, if you think about how simply, like, we don't have to think about that. We don't have to think about our heart beating. We don't have to think about breathing. We don't have to think about so many things that just constantly happens, blood being filtered, etc. But it's all happening, and it's in this amazing body that we have. So it's really important that we treat it as well as we can. And I think we've lost a lot of the traditions that we used to have in order to do these simple detoxes. Now, there are certain religions that continue to do them, like, you know, we have, gosh, now I'm blanking on the names of them. Lent for Christians. For Muslims, we have, which changes times of year all the time, but they have, now I can't remember, but they have that where they don't eat from dusk till dawn. So that's an intermittent sort of fasting. But these are things that we've always done over the generations that have helped us to keep our bodies stronger and work optimally. A lot of people don't do them in the same way that we used to, that we should have, should still do them. But that was the purpose of having them in a religious context, right? Is that the masses stay healthy. So with that in mind, it's something we have to consciously think about now and apply in our lives, whether we're cleansing or detoxing. And it's something that we should be doing semi-regularly so that it gives our body a rest in so many ways. So again, cleansing may focus specifically on digestion and maybe cleaning out the bowels and just getting that sort of smooth again. A lot of people can have difficulties in those areas. Some people, you know, it's normal to have a movement every 3 days, which is not ideal, by the way. So that's something we can talk about as well. And there is crossover between cleansing and detoxing, obviously, because if you're detoxing, obviously cleansing comes into it, right? And things that you do in the beginning of a cleanse to make the cleanse significant and beneficial, you have to do those for a detox as well. Because if those little things aren't working, if you're not having a bowel movement regularly, you're not going to be able to detox, and it's all going to load up in your system instead of coming out, which is where we want it to go. So the difference between the cleanse then and the detox is that the detox goes much deeper. It can often be much longer, systematic sort of method that you have to apply. Sometimes it has different herbs involved. Sometimes you might even do some enemas to help the cleansing process. So there's lots of different ways we can go about that as well. But generally speaking, it's a more involved method of toxin removal to restore, refresh, and revitalize your cells. And the hopes of that, again, is to optimize the function of all the cells that we have. If all we're doing is drinking wine and having McDonald's, it's going to get sludgy up in here, right? It's not going to move and flow and do the removal that we need. So Now half my screen is missing. I'm going to move that, sorry. So cleansing, going deeper into that just so we can talk about it a bit. And this again applies to the detox side of things. When we do something like a simple cleanse, the main important things to remember, which is something we should really be doing daily anyway, is to be hydrated. Excuse me. Be hydrated. You want to have ample hydration because the hydration helps with your sweating. It helps with the lymph movement in your body. It helps with, it facilitates it. You still have to do other things. It helps with the pooping again and the urinating out as well. That's all ways that we're flushing our system multiple times a day if we're lucky. So hydration is key. And a simple formula for that is actually half your body weight in a pounds version. So any UK people, not kilograms or Americans, we're working in pounds. So your body weight in pounds, half of that. So if you're 150 pounds, it's going to be 75 ounces. So you change it to ounces because you don't want to drink 100 pounds or 75 ounces of water or pounds of water. So 75 ounces of water. So that's, 2.5 liters of water. So that's a basic way to calculate the kind of hydration you should be having in a day to make sure that you're able to have all those functions operate smoothly. Again, this is the poop talk. Sorry, there's so much poop talk, but that's part of our health, right? I mean, people think there's some people, who can't have a bowel movement when they go on vacation. It's very unwell, pretty unhealthy for you generally, but that's probably a mental thing, right? That we have to get over. And if you have a meal go in, if you think about that, there's a digestion time, depending on if you're eating vegetables, fruit, or meat. And then as that meal goes in, the last meal should want to come out within an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. So 1 in, 1 out, that's what that means. So basically, if you're eating twice a day, you should also be having a movement twice a day. If you're having one meal as a smoothie or a juice, then perhaps it'll just be one sort of bigger movement, but you might only be down to one because you're basically, like a juice is not having any fiber in it. It's just all the nutrients. Smoothie is a fiber, but it's so broken down so very nicely for you that sometimes it may incorporate itself. It's moving through so very quickly, right? So the other way you can make sure that happens, and that's one reason why juices and smoothies are so great, is that they're kind of pre-digested for you. You know that having a smoothie is definitely, you've chewed it enough, right? I mean, the chewing process itself helps to make sure that you have enough enzymes in your mouth. So that's one reason why we chew and we focus on our food versus eating in the car on the move, because that can be, it's not going to digest as well as sitting and focusing on your food. And what was my other point? Focusing on your food. It will come back to me. So that's the point of having one meal come in and one meal go out, so that you're moving freely, that everything's being released in good time. We don't want it to be in there fermenting and causing gas and doing all of these other things. So movement and sweating and breath, those are very important as well. All of them are helpful for detoxing the body. If you're moving, you're getting the circulation going, you're getting the lymph glands pumped, and lymph doesn't move on its own. It needs to have muscular contraction or the gravitational force. So if you are rebounding, for example, or bouncing on the ground with your feet, that will help cause lymphatic drainage and movement in your body. But again, you need that hydration. It goes, they're so related, right? Sweating, again, you need the hydration to be able to sweat effectively, but sweating actually is one of the only ways to detox heavy metals and such if you're not binding them with other things. So sweating is super important in the cleansing world. That could be by exercising, by sitting in a sauna, anything that helps the pores remove, and it's just good for your complexion as well. It's great for your skin. So that's the sweating. And of course, breath, there's lots of toxins we get in our lungs. We want to exhale them. And that's why you should link habits. So if you have, for example, the habit of, the easiest one to think of, but it's not the nicest place to take a deep breath, is if you're going to sit on the toilet. Well, then you know that like you link the fact that, okay, I'm sitting down now. I know I'm going to be here for a minute or two. I'm going to do some relaxing breath work, right? If that's not your thing, it sounds pretty grotesque, then let's link it to something else. Every time I sit at a particular chair in the house, as long as that happens several times a day, then you can link the breath work to that location. And then you know that you're inhaling fully, getting in fresh air, and you're exhaling completely and releasing all of the stale air that's lower in the lungs that you just don't get rid of unless you're consciously breathing or unless you're maybe exercising and breathing hard, right? So that's another form of exchanging gases and ultimately cleansing the body. And it's not something we consciously do. In daily life, we only use maybe the top third to the top half of our lungs. The rest of us just, we're never exhaling completely. So a lot of yoga is great for that, if that's your thing. The next easy thing to think of in cleansing is sometimes just, people want to do it in small steps. So if you just add in nutrition as a first step, that is great in itself, because if you're adding in lots of greens, whether it's, you could do a green drink, you could do a juice a day, you could do anything that really helps you focus on getting more nutrients into your system. After a week or so, you're going to notice the difference in your energy and in your movement. And again, with liquids, proper liquid amounts, etc., things will work a bit more smoothly when you're focusing on that. So that's an easy way to start doing like a minimal cleanse, right? As well as all the ones above. We're just adding in other steps in case that was something that, speaks to you specifically. The next step would be to remove some bad foods. So, okay, now we're adding in some nutrition that's going to add something for our energy and for our cellular health. Now we're maybe going to say, well, I'm not going to do that Tim Hortons iced coffee every day, right? Or the, I don't know what it is, whatever it is, the Frappuccino or whatever it is for you, maybe I'm going to make it a treat a couple times a week. Whatever it is for you, that's your trigger food. Perhaps you eat it a little bit less frequently. Maybe it's something that you can just not deep fry. You can bake it instead of deep frying it. Maybe that's your choice of removal to start with. And as you start feeling better, often you're like, oh, that's good. I noticed that. I'm going to try the next thing. So that's another good way to start it. Another thing, which is a bit more intense for most people, is by taking out common allergens. And common allergens are wheat, dairy, soy, eggs, and I feel like I'm missing one, but those are the main ones. And if you can take one or all of those out for a week, 2 weeks, whatever you can do, a month, you will usually notice that it'll help your body just start to move frequently, move better, like everything, again, in conjunction with all the stuff above, the water, the breathing, all of the other stuff, making sure you have good movements. You will notice differences just in these small things alone. So that is my first recommendation and the simplest way to start a cleanse. And you can do this by adding, nutrition in every day, one drink a day for a week or 2 weeks. That's not really difficult to do, but it's something that should make some little steps for you. And the one interesting part is people say, oh, I don't like the taste of kale, or I don't like the taste of something. One of the fastest regenerating cells in your body is your tongue. So it's about every 7 to 10 days that your tongue cells are regenerating. So, which makes sense, right? If you ever bite your tongue, it heals pretty quickly, right? So if you think about eating something different, so if there's something that it's not favorable to you, cauliflower, let's say, if you eat it in little bits during that first week, chances are the next week, as long as you're not building a mental issue about it, Christine's husband, Greg, as long as you have a mindset that, yes, I want to enjoy this and I want to add this into my life going forward, chances are that you'll enjoy it a bit more the second week and then the third week, etc. Because if you're introducing it, then you will actually get accustomed to the taste. A quick story about that, for example, now this is much longer duration, but chocolate was always kind of my thing. I lived in Central America. That's another thing I did. I was a tour guide in Central America. That was with Anita's company. And the chocolate down there, because it's hotter, doesn't have the same cacao amount because it melts. And it also doesn't have the same sugar amount. So the sugar they put in North America, much higher than the sugar they put in Central America when I was there anyway. So I found when I came home, everything tasted so sweet to me because I just wasn't used to it anymore. And that's fascinating in a lot of ways, culturally, etc. But the point is, you can get used to less salt or less sugar or better, more cruciferous vegetables, etc., even if you don't like them, as long as your brain is on side with you. Make sense? Oh, now it doesn't want to. Oh, no, we're not going that way, silly. Okay, so now I have to move our screen again. So now this is talking about the next step. So this is, did I title it detoxing? I titled it fasting. So fasting is like, it has so many variations, right? So everybody the last couple of years has heard about intermittent fasting. That is all the rage, and it's easy thing to add in, and it's something that people are just becoming conscious of now. So intermittent just means that you're going to do it occasionally, or you're going to do it for a span of time. So for example here, this is daily periods of time within the day to rest your digestion, because if you're eating up until 11 o'clock at night, you got to have that snack right before bed, and then you go to sleep. First of all, your body has to digest all that while you're sleeping. So you don't have the chance to rest your body properly because it's doing the function of digestion. And also while you're sleeping, you're not going to have cellular autophagy going on and cellular growth. Okay. So that's when we really have those growth hormones happening, is in the sleeping hours, because our body has the chance to rest and do nothing else, not think about anything else. Hopefully your dreams are good, all of that. The different ways you can do this intermittent fasting are, that should say 12 and 12, but it says 12 and 1. I don't know where the other two went. So 12 and 12. So that's 12 hours of eating. It's a 12-hour eating window, they call it. And then 12 hours of not eating. So you say you eat your breakfast 8 in the morning, you stop eating 8 at night, and then you're resting for the other 12 hours. Okay, so that's simple. That would be the minimum. You want to rest for at least 12 hours to rest your digestion. You could have tea after, if it has nothing in it. You can have water if you'd like, but you don't want to be having anything that's caloric after your eating window stops. Now the eating window closes on each of these. So 14-10, that means you have 14 hours to have good autophagy and cellular regrowth, and you're having 10 hours where you're able to digest and eat. Okay, so that's your window. The next one is 16-8, 18-6. And some people like to incorporate, a 24-hour day weekly or bi-weekly into their intermittent fasting. So that means even monks and different religions still practice this, that they go one day a week that they'll only have one meal, and then another day a week where they actually don't eat at all. So again, that was established in a religious way, but it still is very, very good for our bodies, and especially in the time that we live in, of such plentiful everything. It's we're always satiating our desires, right? So that can work against us in a lot of ways. So if you do no other intermittent fasting, but take that one day a week where you decide, I'm not going to eat from dinner one night until dinner the next night. That gives your body 24 hours once a week to really focus on, all of the other stuff, taking apart all of the bad bits that might be starting to form and giving it time to use that up. That's what keto is really all about, but we'll go into that further down the road. Okay, so that's the first easiest form of fasting, intermittent fasting. Another option is juices, smoothies, or FMD, which is fasting mimicking diet. And that was kind of big when it came out by an Italian researcher about 5 or 6 years ago. And it just is a way to fast while still eating. So it made the fasting more appealing for a lot of people. So we'll break them down. With juicing, again, you can do green juices. You can do, I wouldn't suggest fruit juices only because again, that's going to spike your insulin levels, etc. What you want to do is have a lot of greens in there. You could have a green apple, you add some lemon, different things to make it delicious, mint, etc. But really focusing on getting more nutrition into your body versus having a lot of fruit. And if you're going to eat fruit, I recommend it more in a smoothie with pulp, right? Versus having it just the sugar part of it, because that's, again, a little bit harder for your body to handle. So you can replace one meal a day, again, as we mentioned, for a week, or maybe you're doing it 2 days a week that you make as your regular thing forever. It's really so versatile. It really has to depend on what works for you and what your ultimate goals are and what your issues are. If you have bigger issues, you're going to have to tackle it a bit faster. You're going to, have to look at everything a bit more in depth. So this is just a simple way to add something in. And again, as your taste buds change, because you're doing this a bit more frequently, then you might want to move on to something else. Baby steps, right? So the next option is, of course, smoothies. So a smoothie, you're going to add in, again, you can do lots of green smoothies available. You could do blueberries, because wild blueberries are so very good for us. We know the anthocyanin. Oh, now I'm forgetting how to pronounce that. Anyway, you know what I mean. The good stuff in the blueberries, like in the wine, but not quite. Smoothies, same for any of you who've been to Asia, you know exactly what I mean there. But it's the same thing. You can replace one meal a day for as long as you like. Maybe you do it 3 times a week forever. Maybe you do it 2 weeks straight. Maybe you're doing it a month. It's really up to you. You can do smoothies all day long if you want. So you can do 2 or 3 smoothies a day for 10 days. And maybe that's just so that your body, again, it's already digested. You know that you've chewed enough because the chewing's been done by the blender. You're still getting fiber. You're still getting all the other things. As long as it's not only fruit or mostly fruit smoothie, again, your insulin and glucose levels should be good. And you can do that for a good period of time to get a nice, simple detox as well. So the FMD, the fasting mimicking diet, it's just a way to, it's a 5-day plan. And it's a way to take in a certain number of macros and in a certain time period. And you only do it for 5 days. Well, 5 days max. Some people do it for 3 to 5 days, depending on their time period. But 5 days gets you the highest amount of autophagy, according to this doctor. And even though you're eating. So the eating is restricted by calories, and it has to be within certain limits, nutrient limits, right? So that is how that works. And some people prefer that because they at least get to have a little something for 5 days instead of going completely without, which is the next option. So that's the water or the dry fasting, which is definitely, from my experience, is the hardest kind of fasting. And definitely the shortest fasting. It's not something you want to do for extended periods of time. For example, the water or Soleil can be done. So the Soleil just adds just a little bit of good, healthy salts in your water, like a tiny bit, so that you're getting a few electrolytes at the time that you're only ingesting water. And that helps, again, move everything out, flush it through. You can do speaking of that, to make the flushing happen, if you do have some bowel issues, you can do a Soleil only, like increase the level of salt. It's very minimal, and I wouldn't suggest it if you have blood pressure issues, but you can do a saltwater cleanse or flush. So that's to get your bowels moving. So you basically are going to increase your salt water through the day just until tolerance happens. And that'll help you flush out something that might be, congested in your bowels, as well as a vitamin C flush, which is probably, you don't have to monitor it as much because you basically take vitamin C to tolerance. It's water soluble. You take maybe 4,000 to 10,000 to start, depending on what you're used to taking. And if you still haven't gone to the bathroom within an hour, you add another 2,000 to 4,000 each 15 to 30 minutes. And at some point, trust me, you will flush it through, especially if you're drinking enough in between, because that again is vital for all of that. The last one is also a magnesium flush you can do, as well as castor oil packs. That's very effective, and you don't have to do, I know I'm jumping a little, sorry. You don't have to do anything else to it. It's a topical application of the castor oil over the liver and bowels. You wear it for 2 hours or overnight, depending on what's comfortable for you. And it actually, castor oil is one of the only oils that will penetrate through all the layers of tissue, and it will help the stool to move through. The oil itself will. And the magnesium, same thing. Magnesium is great for muscular movement, so that will help. You can do the same thing for that in a short period of time, for a short term. You don't want to be doing these daily. If you're having trouble moving every day, then we have to look at some deeper issue. So that just came to my mind because that's something that's, again, important through cleansing and detoxing. So the water and the Soleil you can do for a variety of durations. You could do the 24-hour fast, which goes back to the sort of intermittent style. You can do it for 5 days. You can do it for 10 days. Some people do it 28 days or more, but I would suggest that it's monitored at this point. And of course, anything you do, any fitness or nutritional regime that you add into your plan, your daily plan, you should probably consult your physician, because that's something I have to say. So I've said it. So that's something that may be monitored if you're doing it for 28 days. But there's many people, many stories that I know people about, and I've read about, that have done this and that have great success with some very debilitating issues that they have. So they've basically rested their body long enough so that their body has had time to rejuvenate and heal. And again, there's a window where you want to, at that point, stop, add in a little bit of nutrition so that your body can recuperate. Again, it depends how heavy you are, how light you are, your metabolic rate, and all of that stuff has to be incorporated into that sort of a plan. And then you could start doing another 10 days. So you might do it in blocks if you're very lean, or you might, there are other ways to plan it, but that's just giving you an idea of how some people really jump in. They jump all in to be able to get rid of some really difficult health problems. Now, dry fasting, I've only ever done dry fasting incorporated into a water fast. So the longest I personally have done is about 36 hours. So about a day and a half. And you want to do nothing. If you're ever trying a dry fast, you want to be nothing on your schedule, not really leaving the house, because it's very draining. But that short period of time, you can do it for 12 hours. You can do it, again, if you're intermittent fasting, you can just add a few hours that you're not going to have that first water in the morning if you haven't had your drink at the certain time of night, right? So that's a little less daunting as an option, and it just gives your kidneys a rest. So specifically, some people are very attached to water and drink all the time, but then again, your kidneys don't actually have time to chill out and rest either. So that's sort of the other side of it. But of course, we need to take in enough water. So that's just a really short fast, the dry fast that you'd want to do, and very infrequently, just for the purpose of resting your kidneys. And on we go, if I can get it to move again. Is that right? Nope, missed something. Okay. So this is just talking about detoxing again, but there's all kinds of different specific detoxing that you can do. For example, nice picture of a big fat liver there. Liver is probably the biggest organ we have in our body.
And it does so much work for us. It's unbelievable. So love your liver, thank it every day. It does really do so much for you. So doing a liver cleanse, that involves a period of time where you have to eat really clean, because you don't want to have wheat in there and dairy and other things in your eating window for that 10-day cleanse. So just so that your body has a chance to optimally do this flush at the end. You're also adding in, it used to be done specifically with apple juice, because apple juice has a specific acid in it that helps to soften these gallbladder, or these stones that can be in your gallbladder and etc., which are all attached to your liver. So what you're doing is softening these stones during the first 7 days of this cleanse. And then the last couple of days, you're now trying to force expelling them. So you actually do some enemas, and it's amazing the stuff that comes out that you don't realize is there. And they're in different colors, green, yellow, darker. And because they're soft now, they're able to come out. And you're also taking some other things like lemon juice, other stuff it helps with the expulsion of these stones. And that's something you should maybe do every year or two, really, a nice liver detox to get, again, that just gets your liver functioning optimally. Some people start to get very, very sick, and they might have issues with heavy metal, because heavy metals are not meant to be in our body. So that could be something like mercury starting to leak from your amalgam fillings in your mouth. That could be, you live in a house that has asbestos. That could be that you work in a factory where there's lots of metal around that gets into your body. So it's really important that you try to do some detoxing on the heavy metal as well. Simple stuff that you can do all the time. Cilantro is a great detoxer for metals. So if you can eat handfuls of cilantro for periods of time, that would be great. Or juice it, put it into your juices. If you need something heavier that binds to the metals, then you have to go into something where you generally are adding in herbs and different, nutraceuticals that would help with that process, basically. So the only other thing I want to say about that is sometimes people can't seem to get rid of all their heavy metal issues. And that can sometimes be because of parasitic stuff that goes along. So that's a whole different cleanse, but I just added it onto the heavy metal part, because if you have parasites in different stages of, adulthood, larva, pupa, etc., in different stages in your system, from going whatever, we could get it here as well from farms. We could get it abroad walking in the sand. We could get it from many, many places. And again, that's something that people who used to work on farms used to do every spring and fall. They used to do a homemade sort of parasite detoxing, which people just lost as they move to the cities. They lose this, but that doesn't mean that they aren't somehow in contact with some parasites and need some tending now and again. So anyway, the parasite, getting rid of those, again, you need to look into specific nutraceuticals that will help to attack the parasites, and you need to do it for a period of time so that you can get them in each stage. Because if it's usually the adult stage and sometimes the teenager stage, if you would, that you can remove them in, kill them and have them come out of the system. But if there's some in the pupa stage, you need to be getting those later. So it's usually a 2 to 3 month detox where you're just actually adding in a nutraceutical. So it's not exactly the same as changing your whole menu. But that can help. Then you move on to a metal detox after that, if you're once you're clear of the parasites, so that they're not holding on to the metals and putting them back into your system as well. Okay, does that make sense? Everybody's clear there? I can't see most of you, so I'm going to say yes. If there's questions, go into that Q&A. And the pancreas, which kind of looks a bit phallic there, but it's tucked away into it's kind of a, it's a triangular almost shape. And it has to do with our blood regulation, our glucose regulation, our insulin regulation. And this style of detoxing is a little bit longer. It takes closer to a month, because what we want to do is really monitor what our glucose and insulin is doing in our system, which takes time, and then we need to reverse it. So people who are type 2 diabetics, this is great, or people who are on the borderline of being type 2 diabetic, fantastic cleanse for you. Or if you just want to optimize your metabolic system, because that it shows you what to avoid, it keeps you in alignment, it drops everything and makes it all work really effectively again. So what we're doing is basically, because we're monitoring these glucose levels, we're doing it for we're doing a week of monitoring only on what you're eating regularly, and then 3 weeks minimally, depending on your results at the end, of eating super clean and monitoring what's going on while you're eating, so that we don't spike your insulin and glucose up. Okay, so we're trying to keep it at a really baseline. We don't want this to happen, which happens a lot when we have that, you know, sugary iced whatever cappuccino from Tim Hortons or whatever they are. You're having a spike of glucose and your insulin has to shoot up to match it. And at some point your body starts saying, oh, it's just that crazy sugar again. Stop sending insulin. Like it becomes less sensitive to it. So you're resetting your insulin levels by doing a really calming eating pattern for 3-4 weeks. Again, the more regularly you've done it, the more quickly your body responds. Okay. May is actually trying this one right now, so she maybe later can speak to some of the things that she's noticed through this kind of a cleanse, and stuff that, you know, she wouldn't have really put together without this monitoring and really being conscious of all of it. Because you'll have people who work out all the time and you know, think they're eating really clean and well, and they just don't know what's going on. And this is really sometimes the best detox to do, because it gets that whole metabolism going again. It sharpens your mitochondria and gets everything functioning properly again. And it gives you an idea of what your pancreas is doing and what your insulin is doing, because that's really important, especially as we age, because things can change. Things always change. So it's good to be monitoring it every now and then, which does mean we actually effectively, if you want to do it really well, we do get a little glucose monitor, and we're pricking our finger, or you can get the one that goes in the back of your arm that you just swipe every now and then. But those are great for really understanding your body and how your body's reacting to certain foods, and to really keep it in level, because they're saying now that actually type 3 diabetes is a form of how dementia, et cetera, starts. So that's something that we maybe want to think about and look at going forward. So did I hit on all of those points? Yeah, helps to optimize your function and metabolic improvements in general. Any questions I will field shortly. And it's not moving again. Let's do this. Okay. So what you have to remember is that you need to nourish yourself. Self-care is super important, because even for the last example I said, sometimes people are, you know, they're working out every day and they're doing really hard, and they want to see more results, and they you know, they're like getting good sleep, and they think their eating is on par and they should be seeing more than they're seeing. But maybe you need that pancreas reset, or maybe you're just too stressed out about it. Maybe your stress levels are what's really causing the issue, right? And that's something that we have to look at, and only we can know, and something we need to work on. So there's something called heart math, which is basically, it's a visualization. And as you do it, you get better and better at it, and you're able to bring yourself into this place of calm just by bringing that visual place into your consciousness. That comes back more and more quickly every time as you practice it, as you get better and better at this. It's just like meditating. Same idea. as you get better at meditating, because you're practicing more, you get into that calmer state faster, just because it's like anything else, right? The more you practice, the better it becomes. So that's why self-care is so important, especially for women, but you too, Ashley, because women often are the main caregivers for other people in their family. So perhaps, someone gets ill in your family. Well, sometimes you have to take care of your family and then help that person out as well. Maybe your parents are getting older, so you have responsibilities. Maybe your kids aren't gone yet, but now your parents are aged and you're in that sandwich generation. And that's what can happen as we get older. It's like our responsibilities increase instead of, decrease and get a little bit calmer. So that's a possibility as well. So that's why we need to learn to focus inward. As much as, some people think it sounds selfish, without that time to have that reflection and learn that technique of calming yourself and putting yourself in a place of really, what's so urgent, unless the house is on fire, what is so urgent that if you're late for a meeting, well, it's not going to change if you're stressing about it, right? So just breathe and get there. It's something that, again, takes practice. It's not going to come quickly, but these are super important factors to be able to see results for anything as well, because it's our body feels that stress no matter what kind of stress it is. All right. I tell that to my son all the time because he plays those shoot 'em up video games. That puts his body into a state of stress. So that stresses me out. But anyway, I digress. That is what we have to learn to breathe through, because we cannot change it. All right. So this just shows you a nice wheel of the things that you need to be mindful of, right? We have our psychological side that has to be cared for. We have our emotional side that needs, we need people and we need to be sound emotionally, and maybe look back at incidences in our lives and journal them and put them up in flames, or there's different ways to release those sort of things. And of course, actually, this is all great stuff that you can get coaching for, right? So that's where Christine would come in. There's the spiritual side of us. We want to make sure that all of these are filled up to the best potential, because if we're missing something, then it could cause us, again, stress or duress, or we're not going to be fulfilled fully. We want to make sure we have a good spiritual side, whatever that means to you, that we're being physical, that we're sweating or we're moving and getting that lymph going, because that is super important to detoxing and just general health. We want to have our finances and our securities in place, so that part of our, if we're stressed about money all the time, then that's not going to help any of the other stuff, right? So we need to have all these bits. And as we know from the past 2 years, if our social and relationships are restricted, well, that causes people a ton of stress as well. And that is just not healthy. And the last component that I put in for that is that you need to have fun. Fun is like as we get older, and I'm talking like from 15 to 25, we just lose a lot of our joy, our general joy. Kids laugh like 50 times a day. How many times did you laugh today? Right? We lose it. We forget about it. And that's something that we should find something we enjoy and something that's fun to us. Just be a goofball, be silly. I mean, if you have kids, it's easier to do because they're happy to be silly with you, and their laugh alone makes you laugh and makes you enjoy it. But find things that, spend time with kids. I don't know. Find things that make life fun for you and make it happy for you. All right. So another little quote here. The most important thing is not to stop questioning. So again, that refers to so many things, but in this case, specifically, we're talking about your body. You're the only one that knows you the best. You're with yourself 24 hours a day. So if you're conscious of it, because you can be living unconsciously in your body as well, and your soul and your spirit, etc. If you're not questioning, oh, well, that feels weird. What was that from? What did I do? Did I eat something different? Was I eating on the run? Did I not breathe properly? If you're not questioning things, then who's going to be able to help you? Nobody else is going to be able to help you better than you, because you are with yourself 24 hours a day. So just remember that and try to take it into account. Again, this is just the fun aspect. So I'm stressing it. Make sure you do something fun. Laugh and do things that make you feel joy, because these are the simplest and best ways for us to be happy and healthy. It's something simple to add into your week, month, whatever. But, and it can be free. It doesn't have to cost money, but just make sure that you're putting it in there, because as we get older, we tend to, you know, that tends to be something we go without a bit more frequently, and damn, that's just not fun. Oh, where did that come in? Not sure why we're back to that. Okay. Well, I guess my other slide, which was just a final slide, is not there. No, it's not there. Okay, well, that's it. I hope that gave you some insights. And I'm ready. Oh, there it is. Why did it go away? Anyway, thanks for your time. Thank you so much for listening to me babble on. And now it's time for questions and answers. So take it away, Christine. I guess I have to stop sharing first, right?
You could, yeah, we could see you bigger if you, thank you. Thank you. Oh my goodness, I'm writing notes and I'm like, okay, I'm going to remember to ask you about that later. But like some of these things, I feel like some people are going to be a little shy. Like, you know, people don't always, or like, you know, want to talk about their poop and stuff like that. But
yeah.
Poop is the most
everybody does it. That's the thing, right? Like, I don't know why people are so shy about it, because it's important. We do it multiple times a day. And yes, it's stinky and gross, but that's why we want it out of our body.
Yes. I have two young boys.
Yes. And they're talking about poop all the time.
Talk is like the most hilarious thing. So you want a good laugh, come for dinner at my house. But I will open up the floor if there's any questions. You may have jotted something down. I didn't see anything popping up too much in the chat. There were a few people who did have another meeting to go to, Mel, so they
yes,
messaged me privately.
A couple of them mentioned it to me.
Anita and Ashley is but I will open it up. Is there anyone who has something that maybe came up for them during Mel's presentation? Pauline, do I see your hand?
Hi. Yeah, Melanie, yeah, did you ever hear of milk thistle helping your liver to cleanse?
Yes, milk thistle is a good adaptogen for your liver. So it does help do some detoxing. Yeah, it just sort of gets it, it's something you could take in combination to help it strengthen and nourish your liver, for sure.
In combination with the eating plan?
Well, I'm always going to suggest that any eating plan is going to be beneficial for you. Absolutely, 100%. Again,
Okay.
Another thing you can do for your liver, as well as the bowels, but the liver, and it's a simple thing, is adding in a really good quality castor oil and putting a pack on it, like the old days they used to do packs. You don't have to eat it. I'm not saying putting it in your mouth. You just put a little teaspoon on your hand, rub it in. Your liver is right under your ribs on the right-hand side. Rub it in under there until it's, you know, not as sticky. And then you can put a pad on top of a towel, whatever. I have a pad specifically, and I can put it in the chat. I can recommend what I use, because it's organic, it's cold pressed. It's a really high quality, and she's actually from Toronto. And that's all she does now is she's a naturopath, but now she pretty much only does this castor oil packs. And her business is called, I don't have a link, but perhaps Christine can find that. Queen of the Thrones is the company name. Great name, right? But that is her company, and she sells, of course, the castor oil and the packs to go with it. And what I recommend also, and Christine could maybe expand on this, is I always put a little frankincense. You can put a little myrrh in there. If you're having a little digestion that night troubles, you can put a little, specifically doTERRA style, you can put a little, what's the one called from doTERRA? Sorry, Chris.
So there's a digestive blend, which is called Zen.
Right. So you could put that on as well on the stomach, more than the liver at that point. But Those are great ways because castor oil is the only oil that penetrates through the tissues, the dermal layers. So
Okay.
it's great. If you do a castor oil pack, for example, if you've never done one, then I'd say minimum 5 days overnight. If you wear that overnight, you will have some stuff coming out on the 5th day that you're like, oh, that's a little smellier and that's a little different than looking than other stuff because it'll actually go deeper, right? It's gonna go layers and layers. It's gonna get to some deeper stuff. So that is a simple, easy thing to do. You do it every month. You can do it every night if you want. It has no bad effects. And it only helps with your movement. It helps support the liver too if you're doing it over the liver. It's 100% beneficial. I can't. It's the
You
easiest
can't
thing.
say enough. What about with that?
But you do
Would
need
that
it
work?
in a glass bottle, and it needs to be cold pressed. You don't want a
Okay.
chemically extracted one because again, it's going through all your layers of your skin and into your organs. So you don't want to have a chemically extracted one. And if it's in plastic, because it's a great leaching oil, it will pull more the estrogenic stuff from plastics through, and that's not something you want. So it has to be in a glass bottle. It has to be ideally organic, and it has to be cold press extracted, not chemically extracted.
Okay.
Okay.
Would that work for parasites too?
It won't work through all the cycles. It will help with the elimination of parasites, but it won't, like you want it, they can cling on, right? So you want to kill, you have to actually kill them off with certain nutraceuticals so that they in their adulthood, they're dying off. And that's why you have to do it for a period of time that hits every life cycle of the parasite.
And we really don't know if we have them.
No, often you don't. There are some clues, but it often, most people probably have something small if they've been on farms or they've been abroad, or it's not unusual. We think it is because we're a very clean society now. But if you have animals, you might have them. It's not impossible to get. That's all I'm saying.
Okay.
So it's not
Thank
something
you.
that people really think about, right? Because it isn't, unless you're getting like the kind that leave a hole in your skin, you're not thinking about a parasite necessarily, right? The bot flies.
Okay.
And I put 2 links in the chat. The first one I think might be American, which would be okay for you, Pauline. I think the other might be a Canadian link. I'm not sure. I didn't really.
Yeah, the .ca I think is.
Okay, thank you.
If you guys wanted to click on them, you can look after. But Mel, didn't you also say that you should like somehow heat that area, like whether it's with
you don't have to. I never heat it myself because I wear it all night long. So I have her castor oil pack. I get her oil, and then I have it's like if anybody's had a child and had natural diapers, it's like the natural diaper. So the inside is an organic cotton, and the outside is kind of a latex. So the oil can't get through onto your bed sheets and your nightgown and so forth. So you place that on top after you've rubbed the oil in. She says to put it right on the pack. I never do that because that's just greasy and gross and you use too much, which is okay for her because she's going to sell more. My idea is rub it in, get it in there as good as you can, then put the pack over to keep the heat in. You can add a heat pack, especially if you're only doing it a couple of hours before bed, because maybe you don't like sleeping with stuff around you. I don't know. It doesn't bother me. I wear it all night long. So I don't bother putting the heat on, although that would be nice in the winter. But I don't tend to do it myself, and it's still great. It's still great. So yeah, it depends on if you want to do it for a short period of time, the heat would definitely be beneficial. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Lori, did you have a question?
Yeah. So if you feel like you're kind of just an overall mess.
Yeah.
Where would you start? So I have Calm.
Yeah.
I have Calm
Detoxing kit.
like, even though the magnesium, the powder.
Yep.
And it if you get too much of it, it will eliminate very quickly.
Sure will.
And so will kale if you're not used to eating.
Well,
kale.
again, yeah, that's a lot of fiber in kale. So as long as you're drinking enough, kale should also push it through. Yeah. But some people have had issues for decades with their bowels, and kale may not be enough without really focusing on a few other things. Again, that castor oil works wonders. I am telling you, I do not get money from her, but I'm telling you that it's a good quality blend and it's just an easy thing to add in. So if you do that half the month, you're gonna be in force for your bowels anyway. Your bowels and your liver are gonna be very,
So it's not so much elimination, it's just if you wanted to sort of right the ship or whatever, or just sort of get on track, what would be the first step in doing that?
so I would, again, you drink enough water, half your body weight in ounces ish.
No, but I did buy one of those giant jugs that's a gallon.
Yeah.
And it's, wow, it's a lot of water to go through.
Gallon is a lot. Now that might be fine for a short period of time. I wouldn't do a gallon, because a gallon, again, you're gonna dilute your electrolytes so much that you might get a little dizzy. You might, there might be other issues that come up. Yeah, it's a sweet spot. You don't want to go too crazy on the water, because anything in excess is not good for you. But you do need to be getting enough in order to make sure that again, the lymph is draining, the poop is coming out nicely, everything's moving, in a thinner viscosity than if you were like a camel. I used to be like a camel. I worked in the restaurant industry for a long time, and I could go without thinking of drinking for hours, and that's physically working. And not a good idea, but it just, your skin gets dry, all of that stuff. I don't have that anymore now that I focus more on generally hydrating. So
Oftentimes I find I get headaches and I have them first thing in the morning. And I had a dentist tell me that oftentimes that's a sign that you're not hydrated enough.
can be, yep, headaches can definitely come from that.
Okay.
Again, so the first steps you should take are definitely on that cleansing page, where you're hydrating properly, making sure you're pooping regularly, you're adding in nutrition, because that's an easy thing to do versus stopping, your bad habits right away. And then once you're feeling stronger about it mentally, physically, then start taking things out of your diet that are just crappy. We eat those cookies late at night. That's not good. 3 hours before going to bed, minimum, you should stop eating. So if you go to bed at 11 o'clock, no more food in your mouth after 8, right? So that's to have proper digestion. That means you're giving your body 3 hours to digest the food you just put in there. So this late night snacking, that should not be a regular thing at all. Even drinking, like drinking wine really late at night, then your body has to metabolize it. That's all sugar. That's all sugar. So if you're, for example, if you're like on the cusp of having some insulin issues and you're having a glass of wine every night, you're going to wake up tired. You're going to wake up sluggish. You're going to want to keep sleeping. You're going to be drained. You're going to maybe even retain water. All these things are going to be happening because your body didn't get the time. Oh, I'll tell you a nice little story. Here's a story. My brother is 6 years older than me, but about 6 years ago, or 7 maybe now, he got diabetes. Slim man, pretty in shape, like firefighter. Wouldn't have thought it, right? But he likes to smoke a little weed sometimes, and then he eats junk right before bed. Worst thing you can do. First of all, he would eat sweets. He's got a bad sweet tooth. But also right before bed, right before going to sleep. So your body now has no time to do the things that it has to do overnight. It's trying to use up all this glucose. So he would have like a bowl of ice cream and some cookies or something. You know how much glucose that is that your body's taking in right before you sleep and do nothing? So your sugar and your insulin are skyrocketing. Same with wine and stuff, because again, that's only sugar. It breaks down in your body to sugar. Your glucose and your insulin are skyrocketing. If you're going to have a treat like that, make sure you're going for a bike ride after, you're going for a walk after, you're doing something physical so that your body's using some of that immediate glucose and you're not going to spike up to that crazy level. And definitely not before bed. 2 to 3 hours minimum that you want to stop having treats. Make it a tea, a clear tea, like without, like there's so many herbal teas that you could have that are satiating and lovely to have without adding calories, and therefore you're letting your body rest amply. It's just changing your habits, right? So I would say start there. And then of course, making sure you get good rest. But you'll notice, for example, the insulin reset that I do is you're checking your levels and you're really monitoring everything. You're bringing everything down to a calm state so that you're not having those spikes and stuff. And you really start to notice, oh my gosh, like May mentioned that I put a piece of banana in my mouth the other day. I wasn't even conscious of it. And I must do that all the time. And I had no idea, because her daughter eats part of the banana and then she just doesn't want to throw the banana or, do anything with that last little piece. So she pops it in her mouth. So again, if you're eating all the time, you're spiking your glucose and your insulin all the time. And if your insulin is resistant in your body, you're going to develop more diabetic issues, right? So you have to, that's why it's a great reset, because it makes your body, it gets your body to recognize insulin at a lower level again. Does that make sense? So it is a more intensive detox, but it's phenomenal in many ways, like weight, energy, et cetera, et cetera. But I would start, if you want to just start with baby steps, making sure you have enough to drink. And that doesn't include coffee. That doesn't include alcohol. Those are both dehydrating things. Anything with caffeine, anything with alcohol are going to dehydrate you. So you actually have to add another quarter cup of water in for every, quarter cup you're taking of those beverages. So be mindful of that and just try to get yourself hydrating properly and add in some nutrition. That'll be the good first thing. And do the castor oil packet. So it does work wonders. And try to do that intermittent fasting where you're not going to eat for 3 hours before bed or drink or take in calories.
That's my worst habit, I would say.
Yeah. And it's, you're sitting around sometimes and you're just like, what do I do? And we do it out of habit. We do it start to knit, do crosswords, do something with your hands, have that tea so that you're having a little bit of something in your mouth, but it's not going to be detrimental to your body resting, right? Okay. And then do something with your hands. Even if you're watching TV, you can still, knit or I don't know, draw, to look down every now and then just to keep yourself occupied. It might help with the munchies part of it, right?
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Did I see anybody else with their hand up? Trying to see. No. I'm just looking at the time, being mindful of the time. It is just about the wrap up time. So I have a question that I think some people might be thinking, and I thought I'm just going to voice it.
Sure.
I'm asking for a friend. No, just kidding. So what would the lazy man version be? Like, you know what I mean? Are there supplements that you can take so I've seen cleanses in the stores where you can just take these supplements and it's helping you cleanse, and it doesn't even recommend changing your diet at all. I know you're not going to recommend that, but so what would do you know what I mean? Is there a way for somebody who is not willing to, do all this stuff in their lifestyle? Do you know what I mean? Is there a way to do it?
Well, herbs in general, like I'm talking about any herbs. So you can do specific herbs like, again, milk thistle, etc., okay, that are going to be beneficial to particular organs. So that's always something you could do, but add stuff in, because you're always going to get the proper nutrients in your cell that help fire your mitochondria, that help give you energy, that all of it rolls off of. So that's super important. And I think that adding in nutrition is the least invasive thing people can do. Right. So add in a juice.
So adding as opposed to eliminating.
Oh, well.
When you take,
it's the simplest.
You take one out. Yeah.
It's the simplest thing to do is to add in without thinking, oh my God, I have to change my eating. So again, as you add it in, maybe you're starting to feel better. Maybe you have a bit more energy. Then maybe you're willing to take something out. But if you're going to do nothing else, at least make sure you're getting proper nutrition. And honestly, when I don't fall off the wagon and I'm eating clean and I'm eating properly, I have very few cravings.
Mm-hmm.
I have very few cravings because I'm getting all of the things I need. And it's not because mentally it's different, although I do try to add in the heart math and all those sort of things for visual, for stress and bringing other things down, the breathing, all of that kind of stuff, meditating. But if you just add in some nutrition, then your cells are all going to function better. And then you can take the next step because you'll feel like, oh, I'm waking up a little bit better. And also the window before sleep. I think that's very important for people who've never done it before. So I think those two are easy steps to take, and they're not too invasive with, changing your habits and what your family wants to eat and all that kind of stuff.
Well, and I have to say, I've been doing the intermittent fasting, and for me, it's like the best of both worlds because, so the whole mental block, the willpower, oh, I can't, like, I'm a rebel. If somebody tells me I can't have something or I can't do something, I want to do it more and I focus on it. So if you tell me I can't, so if I know, oh, I can have that, of course I can have that, but it's like, I'm just going to have it a little bit later, and then when it comes time, I don't even now I barely even have those cravings. And I've noticed even with intermittent fasting that, I can't eat a big, huge meal. Like you'd think you'd be starving, but no, my stomach just doesn't feel like eating that much. So it's all in all and been healthier for like portion control. And I just don't find it that hard anymore. Like you just get used to it.
You totally get used to it. Also, your body, ultimately, what we want to happen is that our body gets used to not having food for those hours. And it kicks into ketosis. And ketosis, to overview for anybody who may not know, is when you're utilizing your energy that's in your body already. So your fat cells and everything. That's when it's going to start taking that and breaking that down for energy, because there's no glucose coming in and feeding it, which is what it's been used to. So that's ideally, again, that's what the pancreas one really focuses on as a cleanse. But that's what you want to do with the intermittent fasting, is that your body gets used to, oh, I don't get hangry anymore, or I'm not hangry as much, and in time you just know, 'cause so much of it is psychological, right?
Yeah.
People think I can't go a day without eating, but of course you can go a day without eating. It's just that you've not done it, so you don't know you can do it, and you're not comfortable with it.
And I strangely, like I have more mental clarity and like I thought I would be more sludgy and not want to do, but I'm actually more like this.
Yeah. And you might be for the first couple of days, like while your body has to learn and that's the same with fasting, et cetera. You go through some detoxing, even with cleanses. If you're doing like a full smoothie cleanse for a week or whatever, sometimes you'll go through some detoxing that happens, wherein the first few days you might be a little more irritable or whatever, as your body learns to shift, and as it might be expelling some things that need to come out of your body, right? So this can happen. It's not unusual in a cleansing or detoxing process or fasting process, but it's just, as you continue to do it, you don't have those same issues. You don't have the same urges. It all changes. It just takes time to get to that place.
And just one final question.
It's amazing.
Last question. I'm just going to throw at you if you can answer quickly, Mel. It was in the chat from Kim. What one food would you recommend adding to your diet that packs the most nutritional punch?
One food.
Like, would you say blueberries? I don't know. Like, what would
blueberries are great.
That was just something you said earlier.
Anthocyanins. There you go. That's the word. They are great. A wild blueberry is a huge hit. If you're gonna, for example, in the morning, in the late morning. So after, again, I do intermittent fasting usually, but the first drink, again, breaking my fast, which is breakfast, what that came from, right? Breaking my fast, other than when I first get up and I might have lemon water or something like that. I will often have a green drink. So it has some chia seed in it, some ground flax seed in it, like a teaspoon of each maybe. And now you have to work into this because it's not going to be palatable for everybody at first, but I'll have some spirulina, some chlorella, some moringa, maybe some maca so it's all powdered stuff, and you put it in water. You can put a dab of mint in there for taste. You could put lemon in there for taste. Often if that's going to be my meal replacement, then I might add in some protein powder, which I use, vegan protein. and that gives it flavor. Stevia can be your sweetener if you're trying to lower your glucose levels, etc. And that's my first drink. So that gives me tons of nutrients, and I haven't even eaten yet that day, right? So it's also putting fiber in my body. I just give it, I shake it constantly for 10 or 15 minutes, because chia seeds, if you're not familiar, they're hard seeds, but they bulk. So as they're sitting in the liquid that you put them in, they start to soften and absorb all of that liquid. So you let them, otherwise they're chewy and they're absorbing in your gut instead of in the drink. So I let them sit. Some people like to make a chia gel ahead of time and just have that to put in, so you don't have to wait, which is just mixing some water and chia seeds, keeping that in your fridge as is, so that, and it's usually a 1:4, 1:5 ratio, with water being the higher number. And then you can just put that in, a spoonful of that in instead of the dry seeds, and you don't have to wait for it. Depends on your timing and how you work that out in your day. So, but that's an easy, really dense nutritional thing. But you do probably, I would start with it with protein powder and a little less of the greens of each, so that you can enjoy it a bit. Because I drink so many greens and stuff that it's palatable to me. Actually, my son, it's also palatable for, thank God. But it probably will take time for most people to add that into their regime, just because those are strong flavors. They're condensed, right? So I hope that helps.
That was one item, right? I'm just kidding. That was
One drink.
Good, because we all have different tastes. So one might want chia, one might want whatever.
Right.
So I honestly, I'm sure we could go on all night, because there's like so many questions, and you are a wealth of knowledge. So first of all, I want to thank you so much, Melanie, for all of this, the wonderful information and time you've taken to share with us. I want to mention to everybody, Melanie has offered so kindly, first of all, in the follow-up email, she has created 3 special recipes to get you started. I think it's like a juice and a smoothie recipe. There's 3 of them in total. I've already set them up for the follow-up email, which will be going off shortly. So if you have not already registered for Power and Aging's newsletter, I first of all, recommend that you do that if you don't mind. powerandaging.com. Sign up for our newsletter, so you'll make sure to get all of our notifications, but you would miss out on this one. So if you want to either shoot me your email right now in the message box, the chat, or tell Melanie and I can forward you the email. So make sure that you get the recipes. The other free gift Melanie is also offering is a free 30-minute discovery call. So if you are looking to potentially hire a nutrition or health and wellness coach, and you have been as impressed as I am with Melanie, and maybe something you want to book a session for with her to get you on track, and she can set you up on a program specifically for you and your needs, then have a 30-minute, free discovery call with her and see if it's a good fit. So her contact information will be in the email as well. So I do highly recommend that you get in touch with her for that. And other than that, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Just a reminder, our group coaching session is this Saturday at 11:11. For those who are already members and joining us, I look forward to seeing you. If you are interested in becoming a member and part of our coaching program, then please reach out to us or join us through our website, and you'll get the information and come out and see what it's all about. So thank you very much. We have one more guest speaker next month, June 14th. Save the date. You'll see the information coming in your emails, and then we're breaking again for the summer. So thank you once again for coming. Thank you. Thanks, Dagmar. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Mel. Have a great
You're welcome.
evening.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.